Hello everyone, welcome to 2 in 22, where we provide 2 insights on go-to-market success in just 22 minutes. I'm the host of the show, Gary Schwacke. Each and every week I host a conversation with an experienced professional who shares 2 insights and the stories behind them that they feel are critical to go-to-market success for growth companies. We will hear from executives and private equity investors with a variety of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives. These professionals are working towards exceptional things with real-world constraints and challenges, just like you. If you are tired of marketing and sales hacking and want an authentic, practical guidance on go-to-market success, then this is the show for you. If you can't stick around for the live show, you can get recordings and highlights of all shows by subscribing to the review on our website, 2in22.com. Now, let's jump right into the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of 2 in 22. Really excited, very excited actually, to introduce my friend Kevin Callahan. We actually crossed paths about a decade ago, which is hard to believe, as I just thought about that. We're going to learn a ton here. He's had a fantastic journey as it relates to product and product-led growth. So Kevin is currently an advisor, consultant, product and tech advisor for ThinkTiv. And very excited. I'm going to actually have him explain ThinkTiv because they've done some really creative stuff around value creation. Prior to that, he actually had a long tenure in technology, and I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit about his start at NASA, of all places. Probably many of you who are runners know him as the co-founder of Map My Run, Map My Fitness, which later became part of Under Armour. He spent some time there. And then he took a hard left turn out of tech, although there's a lot of tech associated with every business today. So we're excited to hear about that short stop before he got into product exercise. So without further ado, let me bring in Kevin.
Hey, Gary. Good to be here.
Kevin. Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Looking good. Very relaxed from the picture that we have up on our bio there. So
yeah, that bio picture, I love it. It's actually from my honeymoon about a decade ago.
I love it.
But it was a photo that was featured on the front page of Yahoo.com about 5 years ago, where the clickbait title was "Power Couple Taking Turns Making Millions."
I love it. Hey, it worked, right? It worked.
Yeah.
So let's follow this journey. First of all, I didn't even realize, as long as we've known each other, the origins of NASA until I actually went back to your LinkedIn profile. So if there's not a good story there, make one up for us.
Yeah. So I was a big math and science nerd, kind of growing up, really into sci-fi, and but I was somewhat at odds at where I grew up. Kind of grew up moving around my entire life. My parents met in Afghanistan, and I graduated high school in South Africa, and had about 11 or 12 countries in between. But I knew I wanted to get into space somehow, and ended up going to Johns Hopkins University because of its affiliation with NASA and the space program, and spent 4 years working in space research. Got a summer invitation to work at NASA as a kind of a NASA Academy fellow. And it was really cool. Half my time I was in a lab building stuff, winding down like 1960 era kind of electronics. Man. And half my time I was sitting around and chatting about the future of the space industry with people like the science advisor to the Pope or the CEO of Lockheed Martin. It was a really neat summer experience. But then very quickly I realized in the space industry, you spend 20 years building a product to maybe watch it blow up on the launch pad. And around the same time, the internet was starting up, and I could build and launch products and software faster than rockets. So I figured I'd be a dot-com billionaire by the time I'm 40 or 50, and then
of course, right? That's simple, of course. Yes.
Yeah, that's the Bezos dream, right?
That's right. That's right. So let's talk about that origin story as you get into software in particular and live that journey. So just briefly, the history of Map My Run, Map My Fitness, Under Armour. Quite a 10 years or so, 7-8 years.
Yeah, it was. So I was very fortunate to be in the early days of the internet, where it really was being a college kid, being around computers my whole life, I was able to kind of really learn and adapt. And whether that was starting my first company in college that enabled me to get recruited and hired for a startup in Boston. And so I got to live sort of the dot-bomb days in the Boston scene.
Yeah.
And then I chased the internet dragon. Ended up working or bootstrapping a insurance company that was trying to do some unique things in the early days of the internet. But as many people know, bootstrapping is a euphemism for being broke and poor, and getting my losing my car and kind of reinforce that. So I figure if I'm going to be quote unquote bootstrapping, I might as well be bootstrapping somewhere happy. So hopped on a train and moved out to San Diego, and running was free, and team and training was a great way to convince your friends and family to pay for your training. And that was sort of the journey that led me to Map My Run. It was 2004, didn't have a car, so couldn't measure my distances, didn't have the $500 for the GPS brick that you strap to your wrist.
Wow.
I figured out, create a website that click, and map my run. And Gary, the funny thing is looking back in the days, like I was trying to figure out a good domain name for the site, and it was really just a problem I wanted to solve for myself. And I came very close to calling it poormansgps.com. And so from a branding and go-to-market perspective, that was kind of one of my first key decisions that I made.
Yes.
I was user number one. Team and training in California was a huge boon to the site in the early days. Met some great partners. They joined on. We went from user of 1 to 500 to 5,000 to 50,000. And I think kind of 10 years later, when we eventually sold to Under Armour, we had about 20 million users, and we're sort of the top running product and community online.
Yeah,
so it's an amazing journey.
That's incredible. So let's, before you talk about the step after Under Armour, just your observations quickly about moving from, still as big as Map My Fitness ended up becoming a relatively small fish instead of Under Armour, what that dynamic was like.
Yeah, it was a really interesting dynamic. I mean, we grew over 10 years, and so it was a lot of starts and stops. We grew with friends and family money for the first couple of years. We then did sort of that kind of progression of Series A, Series B, bringing strategic partners. I think you remember we brought in Competitor Group and Finish Line Sports as some strategics in our Series B, and we realized very quickly that we either need to go raise a monster Series C round or go find a brand partner whose platform that we can scale. And meeting Kevin Plank and hearing his vision for an Under Armour that believes in the future of connected fitness, where every shoe has a sensor, every sports bra has a heart rate monitor. We were kind of in the best position to really leverage the Under Armour brand to become a category leader. And coming aboard Under Armour was an amazing experience. I mean, it was an amazing experience for my team because everyone saw success out of that transaction. And then coming on board with Under Armour was a great time. I mean, it was exciting. It was fun. Under Armour really knows how to kind of show a team a good time. We were the first transaction ever. We were the first acquisition ever, and so it was a little bit of friction, kind of coming into an organization that's never kind of enveloped another organization. But it was fun. It was exciting. The challenge was for me, being a product leader, an innovator, someone who moves quickly. I'm a fast spinning titanium gear, and Under Armour at the time, they're a very innovative company, but for them, innovation was fabric, was stitching, was seams, was sort of the marketing and branding vehicle behind it. It wasn't technology. And so sort of being a fast spinning gear and coming into a public company, it was definitely challenging to be moving at the speed of public company. But again, I had an amazing opportunity to spend a year making sure my team got fully integrated into the Under Armour world. And then I ended up kind of more excited about the opportunity my wife was doing in the luxury chocolate space and building a direct-to-consumer business.
And that had to be fun, right? I mean, you go from all this time in technology to actually making a widget that not only do people buy, but they eat.
Yeah, I somewhat joke where with Map My Fitness, we were definitely selling happiness through activity. With Maggie Louise, we were selling happiness through chocolate. And so maybe there's a future where I just sell happiness direct through like edibles or some other type of pharmaceutical.
I love it. So, well, that was a fun tour, but then, you got pulled back, the gravitational pull of innovation and technology and all of those things. And I know you've done a couple of things, but have spent almost the last couple of years now at ThinkTiv. So describe that for us, because it's a really unique shop and has seen a lot of different things.
Yeah, ThinkTiv is a really unique shop, and it was interesting when I decided that I really missed the pull and the excitement of being at that kind of the edge of technology and the business of technology. And ThinkTiv is a really unique vehicle here in the Austin, or here in general, where they're part management consulting, part design. It's sort of like Bain meeting IDEO.
Yeah.
And so we come in and we either work very early stage and help incubate and build businesses. And that was actually sort of how ThinkTiv got started. But then we also work very late stage with private equity investors or sort of mid-market companies who are looking for kind of an exit, whether it's a fundraise or partnership or acquisition. And for me, cutting my teeth and growing myself in the consumer world, I looked at it as a really unique opportunity to develop sort of that B2B, that SaaS sort of motion. Mm-hmm. And ThinkTiv it's fun. I mean, we work on projects where we come in either post-transaction where companies are looking for ways to accelerate growth or accelerate product. We have a very small team of multidisciplinary people, whether they're designers or product leaders or sort of strategists. And we can kind of help identify weaknesses, we can help accelerate. So that's sort of like done like post-transaction, but we can also come in when a company is ready to sort of start thinking about, okay, how do I position myself for the best outcome for my team? And so typically we work in mid-market, we work companies who've been maybe category leaders at the time, but their technology is aging out or their leadership has sort of moved on. And they really sort of need help kind of identifying some of those changing wins in the market.
Yeah, and we at Yield, we have pretty similar parallel model, if you will, in terms of the cross-functional expertise. The other thing that we're huge fans of that I'm sure that you see as a benefit for your clients at ThinkTiv is that consumer background. The consumerization of the B2B buying experience and product experience is obviously, on a tear right now. And bringing in that unique perspective, I'm sure you see patterns all over the place.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's interesting, like we were kind of laughing about it or a little bit, where it's the industry and the speed at which technology changes so quickly, where what used to be a feature maybe 10, 15 years ago is now a whole industry.
Yeah.
And another sort of pattern you see as well is you see fragmentation, and then you see consolidation, and then fragmentation and consolidation. Yep. And it really is helpful, like for us. So when we go into an engagement, we kind of look at a couple different things. One is we go in and we really immerse ourselves in the company. We talk to all the stakeholders, board members. We ask to be drowned in data and research. And then we go and look at the market, like what is the market that you think you're playing in, versus like what the market is in reality. Right. And between the learning about the company, learning about the market, and then the next big thing is like, okay, we want to talk to your customers. We want to talk to the customers you're trying to sell to. We want to talk to the customers you think are the ideal customers. And so we kind of bring all those three things together, and then we really sort of help like lay out like, okay, this is your ideal sort of what you think you are, versus here's where your real opportunity is, and right. Here's sort of how you have to align your strategy to go and attack that. And if you get there, then you can unlock these sort of outcomes that you're hoping to get to.
Right.
Whether as we were kind of talking, whether that's an acquisition, whether that's a fundraising round, whether that's sort of getting to a certain point where they're cash flow positive and can do what they want. But it's definitely sort of interesting, kind of aligning like those levers that are so obvious to sort of people like you and me is not obvious to someone who's been living in the same world for the past 15, 20 years.
Right. Well, it's like the old adage that you're in the trench, all you see is the trench. So let's transition now to your two insights. And I'm certain that they, that experience informs that. But let's start with your first insight on go-to-market success. And as we think about the kinds of our listeners, viewers, the kinds of companies with whom Yield works, they are in many cases the companies you describe, right? They've had that initial success. Often we call it being hero powered, right? It's the power of the founder. It's been some time, and now they've reached some complexity in the business where, to your point, there's this internal perception about where you are versus what's reality, where the opportunity is. So that kind of size company with which you have a lot of experience is exactly the kind of company that we're speaking to. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest piece of advice is you're never done building, and the caveat of that is you even though you may be the industry expert and the subject matter expert for the past 20 years, you probably aren't the customer, and so where you need to really focus is creating a mature kind of organization that can be out there in the market, that can be always testing and iterating, and then repeat, right? I mean, it's small things like customer advisory boards, but then that can be an echo chamber. So how do you talk to people who aren't involved, or how do you talk to people who say no, and looking at sort of the challenges they're facing now and how you're not solving, or even talking to people who say yes and understanding where they think the challenges will be evolving too. And I think that's really important because in the early days of any sort of technology set, you have this mantra of if I build it, they will come. And that may have been true because there just wasn't choice. And now there's so much choice, there's so much kind of competitive pressure. It's really finding where the exact problem, what problem are you exactly trying to solve, and for whom, and in what very specific way. Right. And the only way to get there is to sort of be iterating and testing and talking and being out there. And it's building a mature product organization that can understand that. It's building a mature go-to-market organization that can align to the values that you're providing rather than the features that you're building. Right. And I think that's like really important for any organization that is trying to mature themselves up to kind of get them through sort of those growth inflection points.
So let's cover that a little more detailed. Because I think as you described, the product organization is so much a part of the go-to-market rhythm now that there's a need more and more for alignment. And what we see in many companies is that what you just described is the really building out that test and learn muscle. Like that actually becomes your operating rhythm.
Absolutely.
What have you seen as ways to get companies from being very operationally focused, right? They're very good at the function, but they get to the point where they focus on the refinement of that function and lose sight of what's going on in the market, to almost pivoting to more of a horizontal path, which is aligning product and go to market and thinking more about the test and learn concept. What are some places where companies can start with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part is just starting. And once you start, whether it's pulling together a diverse group of customers, maybe sort of the happiest and the most cantankerous in one place, and spending time listening and getting feedback and making sure that you're sort of you're hearing what they're saying. And then I think that the biggest challenge is just making it repeatable. Like so many companies will kick off the year and sort of, hey, we're doing this customer advisory board. It's going to be great. We're going to be a customer-led organization and product-led organization. But then it's sort of lip service because there's no sort of rigor built in. There's no process built in. organizational alignment is not there, where sort of people are being measured on their ability and success around kind of engaging these types of leaders. It's having product leaders that aren't aware of the market, or having market leaders aren't aware of the product. It's sort of, it really is making sure that like you have like complete organizational alignment effort, and you're repeating, right? And not only you're repeating, but you're being very meta about it and saying, okay, what worked last quarter? What should we iterate our process? And again, that like iteration of the process, and being very methodical about like how to approach and how to include the right people within the organization. It's not designed by committee, but if you're building product but not talking to sort of stakeholders inside the organization that are closest with the largest users of the product, then I think you have a ways to go. But again, just like on the product side, it's that iterate, the test and repeat, right?
Right.
I think is really important.
Yeah, that great point. That the idea is, if it's important to you, then you operationalize it. What are your objectives? How are you going to measure success? What is the process? And it becomes part of your operating rhythm. Otherwise, it's just a special project that the tyranny of the now kills it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's you go into some of these organizations and you ask about, okay, who are your competitors? And the answer is, oh, I don't really know product knows. Or you ask product and like, oh, we don't know marketing knows, right? Or you ask a CEO sort of how are they staying on top of it? And it's like, oh no, that's just a product process. And so like having that organizational alignment is really kind of building a company that's like the process is ingrained into the culture. And that's where we see the most success with this type of activity.
Yeah. Got it. All right. So believe it or not, we've got about 3 minutes left. I told you it was going to go fast.
Yeah.
And we could spend an hour on that topic alone. But what would your second insight be for growth companies?
I think we touched on it a little bit, where when you're thinking about building product, you're building product to solve a problem. And the way you talk about that product is you talk about the value that it provides the end user. You don't really talk about your features. You don't really list out your checklist of things your thing can do. And I think like very related is how an organization is sort of thinking about themselves as an organization in terms of how does that value lever up into what their next phase of growth is. Like how are they talking about themselves in terms of the ecosystem? If they're looking to raise money, like who do they want to raise money from and why? And so thinking about like, okay, what part of the ecosystem do you actually belong in? So then you can start talking yourself in a broader perspective in terms of kind of the value that can be added there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great, it's interesting how it's so easy to get wrapped up in a way, it's situational awareness, right? You're so busy solving your problem that you forget about that the purpose of the firm is to actually generate an economic return, and so oftentimes that fits inside of what kinds of companies and situations investors are looking for. What is the major current and where is it going and what's your role in that? It's so easy to lose sight of that as you're just heads down solving a problem.
Yeah, definitely. And it is. It's like you want to move beyond just being a feature or a function, and you definitely want to be a key value add to a partner. And I mean, you sort of tongue in cheek look at kind of CRM systems, right? I mean, it used to be contactless, then it was CRM, customer relationship management. Now it's customer engagement platform. As they sort of like think beyond just being able to kind of manage the communication between kind of a prospective sale or a valued client. And so thinking about your organization in terms of how you can eventually lever up to play a bigger part, if that's something that you want to do, or being a small feature-based product that is providing a ton of value in a very small niche way is also a great way to go. But being realistic around sort of like how you're building your roadmap and how you're building your strategic plan to kind of get to kind of that shared vision of outcome in that 2 to 3 year period.
Yeah, yeah. We're fans of, I think it was either McKinsey or Harvard Business Review, what have you, but it's not rocket science. We've all experienced, if you've ever started, is that kind of, we call it the rule of threes, right? Is that if you look at any day, week, month, planning cycle, whatever, there's a portion of your time that's committed to today, the first horizon, right? Then there's a portion that's got to be seeding the second horizon. Then you have to be thinking about the third. And if you don't tend to all three of those at the same time in some form or fashion, then you're either stealing from the future and having to fill that hole later, or you're not funding the future by tending to today. So it's bringing that all together.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, especially in technology too. I mean, you can get very comfortable sitting on your laurels in terms of your technology stack or your go-to-market motion. And it can be dangerous when everything around you is moving much faster than you.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. All right. So let's quick summary here on Kevin's 2 insights to go-to-market success. Number 1, you're never done building. So think about those early days when you were starting the company or you were part of the team, all of the market research you did, the things that you did that didn't scale that you were learning. You've got to take that mindset and build that into your operating rhythm, even if you're larger, because you should never be done building. Go-to-market systems, product, customer success, you're always building. And then second is begin with the end in mind. Where are we headed with this? What are we trying to accomplish? What is the ecosystem in which we fit? How does it all come together? So fantastic advice from Kevin. So Kevin, thank you for taking time. It was fantastic to see you. I'm glad you're doing well and for sharing your insights. And if people want to learn more about you and or Thinktive, where can they go?
They can go to thinktive.com. That's THINKIV, like .com. So think and creative. So
Yep. Awesome. And we'll put those in the comments as well, the link to the comment. So outstanding. Well, Kevin, thank you. It was great to see you. We really appreciate your time, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you, Gary.
All right. Take care. Always a fantastic time. Love chatting with Kevin. He's got such a great perspective. I love the intersection of his consumer experience now with B2B, a very strategic thinker, but also very pragmatic, having built it from the ground up himself. So thank you, Kevin, for your time. Hope you all enjoyed the show, and we'll see you soon.
Life is moving fast, so if you missed the live show of 2 in 22, you can get the video recording and highlights by subscribing at 2in22.com. You can also get the audio version by subscribing to the 2 in 22 podcast on your favorite platform. Thanks for spending time with us.